just want to say, in Canada, who is the dominant? It's colonialism.
Yeah.
This is
Thank you for
based
bringing that word. Thank you.
on colonialism. And, you know, the indigenous people of this country, there's a perception that we're the favored and that the government favors us and that we get all these benefits. But as an indigenous person, it's apartheid. You know, on the one hand, the government publicly says, oh, those indigenous people, we take really good care of them. You don't have to worry about them. But you know, the number one problem with indigenous people in this country is poverty. Because of our agreement with the colonialists, and I'll call them colonialists, we had the land. But in Canada, there's the perception we have all this land. Did you know that we have less than 1% of all land mass in Canada? And the fastest growing population, it depends on year to year, is 1 year it'll be the immigrant, the next year it'll be the indigenous. But drugs like fentanyl has really caused a lot of problems for indigenous communities. I'm so grateful that I'm here. You know what? The dominant is colonialism. And it has put us in different areas. And before you even step on this country, you know, whether you come by plane or boat or whatever, what happens is there's a perception, the indigenous people, you know, they're primitive, they're wild, you know, they're unruly, and, you know, don't worry about the indigenous people, we'll take care of them. But the way they take care of us is we have the poorest welfare in this country, healthcare, justice. You know, this is the country, and it's supposed to be civilized, where a young man was shot in the back of the head and got off. You know, so so we need to watch. I'm glad I'm here. We need to watch as people of color that they don't. What they do is divide and conquer. You know, and so the colonialists, and they'll say, oh, you guys do this, and you know, but and then they'll pick on a community. They may say, oh, we gave all the indigenous people all this money, but they handle it poorly. And you know, all you have to do is look at the success of the colonialists, just right down to Calgary. How many indigenous people do you see there? And what's really sad is the young families with the young children that are homeless. That's when you know that whatever the policies is failing. And it was made that way so that they could overcome the indigenous people. I'll just tell you one more thing, because I can tell you all. It's poor information about indigenous people. We need to educate ourselves, and with you, we can do that. We can educate each other and help each other and stand up for each other. That was in my prayer. I don't want it better in this country just for indigenous people. I want it better for all of us, your children and my grandchildren as they go to school. It'll make this country better. But, okay, so the one last thing I wanted to tell you. Did you know that as immigrants of this country, when you stepped off the plane or you stepped on Canadian soil, you had human rights? As Indigenous people, we didn't have human rights from 1978 when the first Trudeau took it off the table and said they were going to fix it. They never fixed it. When we had human rights again was on 2010, November 12th, 2010. And I had a friend from the Friendship Center downtown called me and said, Charlotte, do you know we have human rights? I said, what? I thought we already had human rights. And they said, no, it was announced in Ottawa that Indigenous people in Canada have human rights. So all your ancestors, whether you've been here for 5 minutes or 5 generations, you've been able to have human rights. But when it comes to this country, they treat Indigenous people in apartheid. And they tell you as immigrant populations, oh, don't worry about those indigenous people, we treat them really well. And that's the message that they give you because they don't want you to know the dark history in this country. And the colonialists are the rulers. It's their policies and it's their structures. So what we can do is stand together and move forward together and stand up for each other. That's what we can do. And make a better country for the children.